When you ask a lot of people if they can read, they answer yes. Reading is a skill many people take for granted, but the act of reading and properly comprehending a text is a complex and interactive process. For example, a short text on the newspaper, that's easy to understand. But when the text gets harder and more complicated, then you maybe read it, but you fail to find anything relevant in it. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 steps to fix that and becoming a better reader. A few seconds ago, I talked about properly comprehending a text. You properly comprehend the text if you understand what the particular text means and what the ideas of the author are. When you read a text, your brain must process not only the written words, but also their relationship with one another, the text behind the words, how language and vocabulary usage can impact emotion and meaning behind the text, and how the text comes together as a large coherent whole. To get a feeling for that, let's look at an example which I found in the internet. It is the truth universally acknowledged that the man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. When we're reading this phrase for the first time, we can have the impression that all rich men want wives. But the context, word choice, and phrasing of the text believe that interpretation. By using the phrase universally acknowledged and must be in want of, the text is conveying a subtle sarcasm to the words. Instead of it being an actual truth that rich men want wives, this one sentence instantly tells us that we're reading about a society preoccupied with marriage, while also implying that the opening statement is something people in the society may believe, but that isn't necessarily true. As you can see, in this example, reading comprehension is quite important to understand the text properly and get the necessary information out of it. Because of that, it's essential to learn how properly read and comprehend texts, even though it's a complicated process, but it's necessary to master it. When you look at your daily life, there are many different situations where you must have a good text comprehension. For example, reading and understanding text from your classes, such as history, math or science, or to take pleasure in written work on your leisure time. To improve your reading comprehension, there are 5 different steps which are divided in 3 groups: before reading, during reading, and after reading. Let's look at the first step: preview and building anticipation. Before you start reading your text, you should look over it. The 3 main functions of previewing are to see how a text is put together, to realize the content of what you will be learning, and to give you enough of the content to indicate the most valuable parts of the text for reading it more carefully. Building anticipation should motivate you to become engaged and committed to reading an academic text. Your mindset should be something like, I have much I want to learn from this, and I want to. With this attitude, it will be easier to start reading and understanding the content. Set purpose. Setting a purpose before reading declares your destination. This helps you to know where you're headed and what you want to accomplish along the way. To declare that goal, asking some questions like, what are the author's purpose of this text? Why I'm reading this text? What questions do I hope will be answered? Synthesize along the way. This means pulling together the pieces of what you're learning during reading the text. Synthesizing involves explicitly looking for related words, concepts and ideas in the text and using them to construct the main idea or summary statement. My favorite way to do that is creating a mind map. If you're interested how I create my mind maps, you can click on the video I have linked right here. Ask questions. You have been asking questions since you could talk. Probably you've seen that with younger children. They are always asking tons of why questions. Try to copy that manner, because asking questions and try to answer them during the reading is one of the most efficient ways to understand and remember a text. If you have questions in mind, then you challenge ideas and demand an understanding of the author's meaning and purpose. Your brain will be prepared to collect new information from the text. Because our brain declines new information, you must use the trick of asking questions before you start reading. As you try to answer your questions, do not be satisfied with shallow answers. Go beyond the text if necessary. Explain. The idea that explaining something helps you learn about it is hardly new. The Roman philosopher Seneca famously said, "While we teach, we learn," roughly 2000 years ago. In one study, researchers recruited a group of preschoolers for an experiment using a colorful mechanical toy with interlocking gears and a crank that made a propeller spin. After demonstrating of how the parts of a similar toy fit together, the researchers divided the kids into two groups, showed each group the experimental toy, and turned the crank to make the propeller spin. Afterward, kids in one group were promoted to simply talk about the toy, to say what they saw. Kids in the second group were asked to explain how the toy worked. What made the propeller spin? Even though both groups had seen the same demonstration, the kids who were prompted to explain showed a much better understanding of how the toy worked, and later they also performed better when asked to rebuild it. Going through the process of explaining seemed to help students understand the causal relationships between the turning gears and the spinning propeller. But what's the point of that? Explaining the stuff you've read to someone is the way to success, because then you can see if you've understood the text properly. I hope I was able to give you some tips for improving your text comprehension. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.